Good. Hi, everyone. Good evening. What a crowd. We are overflowing. So there are still, I see a few spots people should try to fill in. And feel free to hang out by the sides. I know we're streaming it outside the theater, so for those of you who don't mind watching it on a screen, feel free. But for those of you here in the room, welcome. My name is Catherine Baird. I get to work in this wonderful building, the Embassy of Canada. Yes, that does make me Canadian. And it really is such a pleasure to have you with us for what is going to be a really terrific night. I know it's a bit miserable outside, but it is wonderfully warm in here. So enjoy what comes next. And what comes next, it's such a pleasure for the Embassy of Canada to be partnering with Running Start. We've been partnering, this will be our third partnership. We obviously love them and the work that they do in terms of supporting women to run for political office. Woohoo is right. That's right. And so without further ado, I am going to kick off our Women to Watch Awards, followed by our Honoring Women in Congress reception by inviting Running Start's two board chairs to the stage, Laura Cox Kaplan and Tasha Cole.
Good evening. Good evening. Give yourselves a round of applause for being here tonight. I'm Tasha Cole, and I am so honored to be here with my favorite co-chair, Laura Cox Kaplan. We've had a good time serving as chairs, and we are so honored that you all could join us tonight for the 13th Annual Women to Watch Awards. So we are so excited. You are in for a great program. I want to encourage each and every one of you. There are so many young women here tonight. I want to ask each of you to meet as many of them as possible. There's a beautiful video that talks about all the great success that we've seen with women running in all elected offices. We have women in Congress, we have women in the state legislature, governors, and look at all of the women who said that they want to run for president of the United States. So the year of the woman continues. And I want to thank, I won't get a chance to do this, so I want to thank now the staff of Running Start, who is led by our president, Susanna. Where is she? Yes. And the Running Start staff. They made this whole event possible. They're somewhere working behind the scenes to make sure everything goes as planned. But they do an awesome job, So I really want to thank them for everything that they do. And now I'm going to turn it over to Laura.
Thank you. Thank you all. I also want to say a special thanks, obviously, to our friends at the Canadian Embassy for hosting us tonight. Thank you so very much. As well as to the executive members of the board, Angela and Alethea, who I hope are here somewhere tonight, and to our entire Running Start board, who, without their dedication, commitment, and support, so much of this wouldn't happen. So we are very, very blessed to have an amazing team of people that supports the team at Running Start and supports what Tasha and I are doing. One of the things I did want to say just very quickly that I think Tasha and I illustrate clearly is that one of the underpinning values of Running Start is this notion of bipartisanship. So we have co-chairs because Tasha represents the Democratic side of the aisle and I represent the Republican side of the aisle. And that notion of bipartisanship is actually embedded in our recruitment and in our programming. And that's important for pretty obvious reasons, not the least of which is that we train these young women to think about how to relate to someone who has a different political point of view, who thinks differently. They leave this program smarter and better prepared to actually go out and conquer and to create a much more bipartisan and collaborative and constructive world. So those are some of the things. You know a lot about Running Start already, but that's one of the things that I think is so valuable, and at a time of extreme partisanship, it really is an underpinning of what we do here, and we're very grateful for that example that Susanna and the staff ultimately create. So, without ado, if I left anyone off of our thank you list, we are so grateful to have all of you here and for all of your support. So many of you invest time and resources. You engage with these young women who are interested in pursuing politics, and we are so grateful for that contribution and for your attendance tonight. So, thank you so much.
Over the past 13 years, Running Start has given more than 15,000 young women the confidence, capabilities, and connections they need to run and win. Each year, we provide our alums an opportunity for a follow-on training in the form of a campaign simulation we call Run with Running Start. The alums have to declare that they're running. They have to raise money online from their friends and family. The more money they raise and the more creative they are, the more likely they are to get to the portion of the competition that is tonight, which is where finalists will compete for your votes to be elected Running Start's ambassador for the year. So tonight, I would like to introduce you to 3 finalists that represent all of the programming that Running Start offers, starting with our high school program, going up to our Elect Her program that trains women on college campuses to run for office, including our Congressional Fellowship program and even the internship in our own office. So tonight, I am proud to introduce you to Urama, Katie, and Jordan, who will be competing for your votes.
Hello, my name is Arama Apiaje-Danka, and I'm from Michigan. I'm so excited to be here tonight, and thank you all for supporting Running Start. While my earliest life lessons in resilience and knowing one's worth came from my family, the most recent reinforcements of those lessons have come from the women at Running Start. I spent last semester as a congressional fellow in the office of Senator Amy Klobuchar, who just declared that she is running for President of the United States of America. Yeah, I'm so excited. While it was exhilarating to live out my dream of interning on Capitol Hill, it was also a lot more challenging than I ever could have planned for. I'm so thrilled that we're all here tonight celebrating the most diverse Congress ever, because even a few months ago, Congress didn't look like this. There were times during my internship where I questioned if I belonged on Capitol Hill. And in those moments when I got down, the women at Running Start were there to provide the support and encouragement I needed to keep going. Every week at our fellow seminars, from different people and in different forms, I heard iterations of these messages. You are strong. You are smart. You are tough. And you belong here. Hearing those messages for me in the moments when I was low was nothing short of revolutionary. That's why it's so important that all of you continue to support Running Start. There are so many people who historically have not seen themselves represented in our politics. Organizations like Running Start fill in those gaps, and they tell young women that same revolutionary message, that they are strong, that they are smart, that they are tough, and that they deserve to have their voices heard. And they tell them, you look like a politician. My name is Arama Apiaje-Danka, and I ask for your vote to be the next I Look Like a Politician ambassador. Start. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. My name is Katie Freeman, and I'm from California, but I go to college in Danville, Kentucky. Before I came to Running Start, I had run for student government 3 times and lost 3 times. Yeah. At Running Start, I met 73 bold high schoolers leading in their communities. I attended the Resilience Summit here at the Canadian Embassy, where women told stories of having their hands slapped down and defiantly raising them up again. I learned about the reasons why women don't run, despite the fact that when we do run, we win at the same rates as men. I went back to college, and I ran for student government again. And this time I won. Thank you. Those times I lost motivated me to change the election system at my school to make it easier for women to run and win. Because my time at Running Start had shown me that progress is possible. I witnessed this organization of dedicated, intentional women changing the world around them by reminding the people who participate in their programs that they have the ability to lead and giving them the confidence to do so. I don't regret those first 3 times I ran because while I lost those elections, I gained valuable knowledge every time. The biggest lesson I learned is that while a few dedicated people can push for change, it takes a network of supporters, you all, to allow them to achieve their goals. So with that in mind, I'm here to ask you tonight to ask you to support Running Start and to vote for me, Katie Freeman, to be your next Running Start ambassador. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Jordan Weber and I'm from Houston, Texas. And I just have a story to tell you about why I'm here today. So for kindergarten graduation, each kid walked up to a microphone in the middle of our cafeteria stage to tell their parents what it is they wanted to be when they grew up. Kids wanted to be princesses, astronauts, vets, and we even had some cowboys. I remember being 5 years old and walking up to that mic in the center of the stage to tell everyone that when I grew up, I was going to be president. There I stood in the middle of the stage with a dead silent audience because a 5-year-old girl said she wanted to be president and not a princess. Growing up in the South, this is a response I grew too familiar with. I often heard things like, "Wow, you're ambitious for a girl," and had people question my goals and abilities because I was in fact a girl. Now, I came to know Running Start at a very important time in my life. I was 15 years old when I flew to DC for the first time to spend a week at their high school program. There I learned important things about campaigning, networking, fundraising, and even polished my elevator speech. And I happened to gain the confidence that it took to run for president one day. Your support for Running Start is so important because it allows young girls like me to have the tools to break through the glass ceiling. Your support for Running Start, and because Running Start specifically, we will one day have equal representation in Congress. One day we will have more women on the Supreme Court. And one day we will have a female United States president. And it is because of that that I invite you to vote for me for Running Start's ambassador. Because if young girls see that I look like a politician, they know they will too. Thank you.
Aren't they incredible? So here's the best part. You don't even have to fill out a mail-in ballot or travel to your local high school to vote. Tonight you can get out your smartphone. You can text the words Running Start. It's not case sensitive. All one word to 97779, as is on the screen, and you can vote for one of these fabulous women to be our ambassador. So if you want to vote for a you vote A. If you would like to vote for Katie, you vote B. And if you would like to vote for Jordan, you vote C. And here's the best part. We are taking their lead tonight. And if you want to donate, we're going to text you a link right back so you can donate directly through your phone to Running Start. So I'm going to give about 30 seconds without the Canadian jazz that you heard when you walked in here for everyone to vote. Will you pull out your smartphones and vote right now? I think I have a question. Is anyone having trouble voting? I see a couple hands. Uh-oh. Trouble voting? There's no service. Bummer. Okay. Well, would you, when we go upstairs, could I invite you to join me again to text Running Start to 97779? You'll get back a prompt to vote for Arama A, Katie B, or Jordan C. I have one more question from the audience. Tell us your name. Karma. Hi. Everyone say hi to Karma. When do we find out? Karma, thank you. We are going to announce the winner tonight live, and that winner will serve as our ambassador for the whole year. They'll probably get to go on a few international trips and represent us all around the country. It's a pretty fun opportunity. Karma's running next year, but we've got to train her this year, so she's actually an alum.
Feel free to invite the panel.
Okay, I think we're ready now to invite our fabulous panel up. We have some members of Congress joining us, including new women members, some Running Start alums who are elected, and a few other folks. So Jay, are you ready? Could I invite up Jay Newton-Small? Everyone, could you give Jay a round of applause? She is a Time magazine contributor and the author of the fabulous book about women called Broad Influence, and she is going to take it from here.
Great. Thanks so much. I'm going to invite I think we have a little bit of a situation here that not all of the members of Congress are here yet, but we have a few at least so far. So I'm going to invite at least Leslie Lopez to this stage, and Congresswoman, why don't you come up as well, Congressman Houlihan. We have two, so there's at least three of us on the stage joining us. As they come in and as they join us, they're going to be, I think, running in as they come down, and we'll continue to add them. But we're going to go ahead and start the panel since we've got at least two people to start us off, and so and I'm going to go ahead and just start us and say, I wanted to, Leslie and I were talking just briefly before this, and we were talking about the pressure on appearances, right? So I think that it's one of the things that I feel like a lot of women, particularly women who run for elective office, feel like they have to look a certain way, they have to dress a certain way, they have to, always be turned out. And I certainly, when I was doing my book, I remember interviewing Michelle Bachmann, and one of her proudest moments was the fact that she was considered so perfectly turned out for every appearance on her presidential campaign. And that was really like a moment of pride for her, and that. But she also was really jealous that men could sort of, roll out of bed and have no hair and makeup and kind of just, and she would spend hours and hours, on this stuff. And so I wanted to ask you, Leslie, about your experience with this.
Yeah, so thank you for giving me a promotion. I am a state delegate in Maryland, but I am a Running Start alum, and it's really great.
And I should note she has the most diverse district in the nation.
I do. We have 3 of the top 10 most diverse communities in my district, District 39. It's at the very north part of Montgomery County. So if you take the red line up to Shady Grove and then go up about 3 more miles, that's where I'm at. So this is also a really fabulous question right now, and it's so personal because I parked my car with my chief of staff, Naisha Patrick, wherever she's at. Oh, there's Naisha. And it just started pouring down rain. And the first thing I thought was, oh my gosh, my hair, I'm going to look so wet and disgusting. But then I walked in and I realized that, again, your appearance has nothing to do with how approachable you are and how competent you are. And that's really why people elect you. They elect you because they can trust you with their problems and they think that you're going to be able to help solve them. So to answer your question, there is 100% a double standard about appearances. To untangle that knot a little bit more, men can roll out of bed and get going a lot quicker than women. I personally like the fact that as a woman, I'm socially allowed to be more creative with how I present myself, but I realize that I need to go too. So I have my own uniform. If you're thinking about running for office, I would suggest thinking about uniforms too. Having your uniform when you go out to community events. When we're in legislative session, I like a dress because it's one and done. I can run in these shoes because they're kind of a block heel. Yep. And then the other part of that double standard is that women receive a lot more criticism, specifically about appearances, but generally just about everything. Now that we're in the heart of the presidential cycle, I don't think a day has gone by with some nitpicky, weird, idiosyncratic.
I did have a moment in the 2016 campaign when I was covering it where Marco Rubio was criticized for wearing those heeled boots, and I was like, now you know how it feels, buddy.
Yeah, I remember that. They were a statement, you know. It's something different. He was, that's the other part of sexism too, is that men are restricted also. There's probably a lot of ways that men would like to express themselves, but they're just not allowed to because they have to be in a narrow box and they have to navigate a world with their own type of judgment. So the advice that one of my mentors gave to me is that just because someone throws it at you doesn't mean you need to catch it. It doesn't mean you need to take on that burden. You don't need to absorb it and internalize it and make it a part of your own internal dialogue.
Totally. I just want to add one note to this. There was a great story that Christine Quinn told me, who was Speaker of the City Council of New York, and she ran for mayor of New York, and she was a fellow with me at Harvard when I was writing my book at the Institute of Politics, and she had been hounded by the New York Times to do a profile about her hairdresser. And she has this, I don't know if you know Christine Quinn, but she has this really short red bob that is not a natural color known to man, as she will tell you. And she used to talk in her campaign speech about how it was part of her economic development program that how much money she would spend on her haircuts. Oh, we have a third! Yay!
I came from paid family leave. That's the conversation we were having. So
awesome! Welcome. So wait, I'm just finish my story, and then we'll
please.
So Christine, and she talked about how she was so offended that the New York Times had asked her to do a story about her hairdresser. They would never ask Bill de Blasio about this. Gosh, that's so offensive. And ultimately, she lost the race because she was considered too aggressive, really. And I was really, for mayor of New York, there's such a thing as too aggressive. And she really regretted not doing that profile because it was something that was authentically her, right? It was something she really enjoyed doing, and she authentically loved getting her hair done, and it was something that was really her. So I think just being yourself and knowing that if you love to be a clothing horse and you love to wear makeup and that's who you are, and be proud of it and wear that flag. If you don't love it, then don't fly that flag. But I think just be authentic to whoever you are is a great thing to really emphasize. So my next question is to Congresswoman Houlahan, who welcome.
I don't get to answer that one.
Oh no, we have so many topics to cover, and it's such a short panel.
Sure.
And I want everyone to get a good. But if you want to address it,
no,
feel free.
Go ahead. Give me. I'll see which one I like.
You can choose. How about that? If you want to choose. And I really, you're a new member, so welcome to Congress.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So I guess the question I wanted to ask you is, now that you're on top, do you need a mentor anymore? And is it easy to find mentors, in the elevated sort of, atmosphere of Congress?
So I would be happy to answer that question. I actually was talking to my person who was driving me over about these possible questions, and what I was struck by is we do a horrible job as women of mentoring one another. We are really terrible at it. And what I think is a real challenge for each of us is to think about what a mentor really means. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you look up to them. In some cases, you can look across to them. In some cases, people have knowledge and information, and they don't necessarily look like they're at your level, so to speak. And what I'm struck by is I had an experience when I was running. I ran for Congress for almost 2 years fully. And that meant I went through a whole election cycle with a group of candidates who were running for the 2017 election cycle as well. And one young woman had just graduated that week from Villanova University and had decided that she was going to run for school board as a 20-something. And I was able to be mentored by her in the process of running for Congress because of her strength and bravery, because she knocked every single door for a year in the snow and the rain and the heat. And when I went knocking doors with her, I was really struck by the tenacity. She knocked R's and D's and I's and people who hadn't showed up for the 3 other times she'd been there. And every time she'd knock on the door, she'd take a breath and she'd say, it's a vote, you know, and that's the way that I learned from her, even though she was 21, even though she was running for school board, and by the way, she won. And in our region, yeah. And I come from Pennsylvania, just outside of Philadelphia. My district is 40-40-20 Democrat, Republican, Independent, and so we're a really mixed bag of people. And this young woman had such tenacity and energy and spirit that I really could learn from. And so what I would challenge us to do is not necessarily look up for our mentors, but look across and look for the skills that we can have. I think another question that you asked in some of the material that I read was, does that person have to look like you to be a good mentor? And I don't think that's the case either. And frankly, I would argue that if you're always looking for somebody who looks like you, particularly if you look like me, you're going to be lost. You know, you're never going to find enough mentors to do that. And so I would definitely challenge us all to, first of all, be better to one another and to be better mentors. And to secondly, look in places that you're not expecting. And to that end, when I talk about the visual appearance thing, I am a very uncomfortable person in this clothing. This is my uniform. I spent 12 years running a basketball apparel and footwear company where I was lucky if I showed up in anything other than shorts and T-shirts. And so it is, frankly, the thing that I reconciled with in terms of my appearance was I need to have them not be talking about what I'm wearing. I need them to be talking about what's here and what's here, you know, because that's really my brand. You know, that's what's important to how I present myself. So I would love to have answered that question too.
Awesome.
Yeah, of course.
Well, I'm going to welcome now, so we've got a quorum going, yay. Congresswoman Elissa Slotkin here, and Congressman Haley Stevens, sorry, I meant to go in order. Haley Stevens, Elissa Slotkin, and then Congresswoman Kathy McMorris Rodgers, obviously. Good to see you. And actually, so I'm going to go in a little bit of in reverse order here because we're going to bounce around with some of the questions. I'm actually going to start with you, Congresswoman McMorris Rodgers, and talk a little bit, because you're a bit of a veteran. The other two,
all of us are newbies.
You're newbies, yeah, I would say. You've obviously been around for a very long time. And we've got the last member of our panel. And so I remember when I was starting to cover Capitol Hill and starting to cover the women in Capitol Hill, the women of the Senate were so great about religiously getting together every month, you know, for these dinners that were very much nurtured for sort of decades by the sort of deans of the women in the Senate. But the women in the House were not as organized. They were a little bit more disjointed. Is there more of an effort now, do you think, to sort of get those dinners back on track and to get more organized and come together?
Very good question. And as a matter of fact, just today, I was on the plane earlier. We were going to go to John Dingell's service in Detroit. I was sitting beside Doris Matsui, and we're having this conversation about we need to get the women together for dinner. So there's a continued dialogue about it. Congress is like any other aspect of your life. It's based upon relationships. And it's very important to carve out the time, take the time to build the relationships. It is a very demanding job, and we're running all day long, every day. I think that the Women's Caucus does a pretty good job of bringing us together, but I do think that we need to do more, and we as women in the House need to make this a priority. I've been hosting some unity dinners in my district over the last couple of years and bringing diverse people together for dinner, putting away the phones, hearing each other's stories, and just talking about our community. And I have been amazed as to the impact, the people that you meet, the conversations that you have, and then the multiplier effect of having that dinner. So we need to make this more of a priority here. We did one unity dinner on Capitol Hill last year. We actually did it a year ago when we went out to Mount Vernon. And every Republican was challenged to bring a Democrat. Every Democrat challenged to bring a Republican. And we got together for dinner. And we need to spend more time building the relationships and actually talking to each other.
Well, Congressman Clark, would you like to address the same question about bringing the women together in the House a little bit more regularly?
Sure. I think it's just a matter of doing it, finding the time, and making it a priority. I know that there has been a lot of organizing, both Democratic and Republican women, through our Women's Caucus. And if we really want to have a sort of open forum, perhaps doing it as a dinner as opposed to a meeting, in a meeting setting, we can sort of disarm and get more into mutual conversations and concerns. And so I think the opportunity certainly is there for this to happen, and we just have to make it a priority.
I want to ask you, because you also been obviously on the Hill for many years, coming into the majority now, having so many women on the Hill, do you feel like there's a critical mass in the House now? Do you feel like things are different?
I don't think there's a critical mass. I think things are different. It certainly feels good to have more than one female in the elevator when you're walking to the floor. It's good to see so much energy coming from across this country in the feminine. And I think that, we can only build from here. And we have to be intentional about that. And I'll give you a quick story. I served in the New York City Council prior to coming to Congress. And while I was in the New York City Council, we had upwards of 35 seats out of 51 members. We're down to 9 now. So you really have to be intentional in seeking out representation of women. And that's, I think, what has happened in this election and should happen going forward. 50-50 is where I'd like to see it get at least.
Coming back to the freshmen, and I wanted to ask Congressman Stevens, first of all, softball. Do you think you're going to join the team? That's what the women, that's what the women are known for in the House. And I certainly have played my fair share in the media side. And then also, do you think that there are other activities as a freshman coming in that women might do together, like suggestions you might have for getting together?
Well, people always say, who are your new friends? Who are you making friends with in Congress? And the easy answer to that question is all the women. What's your favorite part? All the women. What's the coolest part? All the women. And we are really in this profound and historic moment at the 100 years from when women got the right to vote. And now you have the largest number of women ever serving in the body. And so to your question about the softball, I intend to be the cheerleader and the sub.
We do have a cheerleader.
Because I'm a gym rat. I'm a gym rat. And I found the congressional gym. So I'm going to the gym in the morning, and then I'm going to go cheer on softball. And that's what we're doing as women, is we're cheering one another on. Nobody asked me to run for Congress. I'm in the room with some friends here. It's actually really personally significant for me to be in the Canadian Embassy with Running Start this evening. 10 years ago, I was working as chief of staff on the U.S. Auto Rescue in President Obama's administration. This was the initiative responsible for saving General Motors and Chrysler and 200,000 Michigan jobs. It was also an $80 billion managed bankruptcy of the companies. Couldn't have been done. You were there. Absolutely. It couldn't have been done without the Canadians. And truly, they were a great partner. So thank you to the Canadian Embassy for hosting us. And we remember Running Start when you guys were just getting started. I remember Running Start. So to be here in this packed room, in this packed moment, we're wearing darker colors because we were on the plane today to go back and see, or to go attend the funeral for John Dingell, and we couldn't make it. And you think about this legend that was John Dingell and the arc of progress and what we need to go do and the torches that we are carrying forward and how short life really is, that all you have is your moment and your moments. So while nobody asked me to run for Congress, I put up my hand to go do that because I felt something in the air and I felt the charge of the time. And so it is personally significant for me to be here and to share this moment with all of you and this story about why we ran. And Chrissy's got a great one too, and so does Alyssa, by the way. I got to know my colleagues. So what we're doing, we find each other. The spaces in Congress are important. We've got the Democratic cloakroom, and you kind of got to grab each other when you're walking out and say, hey, do you want to get dinner? Because, maybe you don't want to heat something up in your microwave in your, studio apartment that you just clawed your way into renting. And so we're here. We're glad to celebrate.
I just wanted to add a note about the gym, just as a note of how much times have changed. I remember a great story that Senator Kay Hagan told me, that when she came in as a freshman senator, she went to the congressional gym and she was like, "Oh, do I smell a swimming pool?" And they were like, "Oh, yes, there is a swimming pool here, but women aren't allowed to use the pool." And she was like, "Well, why aren't women allowed to use the pool?" And they were like, "Well, some of the men like to swim naked." and she sort of said, "Well, that seems a little inappropriate." I think I might appeal that. And sure enough, they soon changed the signage on the gym and said the gym is open to everybody to use, or the pool is open for everyone to use, and everyone should use appropriate swimwear when using the pool. So I'm going to go back to the theme of mentorship. And ask Congressman Slotkin, tell me please about any personal stories that you have about really profound stories of mentorship, either someone you've mentored or someone who's mentored you.
Yeah, I mean, for me, mentorship is a new thing, right? It is. And I think it's hard now to think about it, but even back in 2014, basically before Lean In and Sheryl Sandberg, mentorship wasn't something that I had a lot of people talking to me about, and I had to read the book because so many young women who worked for me at the Pentagon were reading it and asking me about it. So so now it's a thing, and it's fantastic. And in reality, we all have had mentors. We just didn't call it that. I happen to be, I'm from the intelligence community. I was a CIA officer and then worked at the Pentagon for many years as a senior leader. There are not that many women in senior leadership positions in either organization. I remember mentorship has come such a long way that in 2014, the acting Deputy Secretary of Defense was a woman at that time. And she said, she looked totally embarrassed. She came to me and she said, "Jill Biden is having this mentorship event at the vice president's residence, and I'm super embarrassed, but do you want to come with me?" And she thought that I would find it really demeaning that she was calling me her mentee, right? And that just shows you how, and I was like, at Jill Biden's house? I'm in. Let's do whatever you want. Call me whatever you want. I'm your mentee. And, Justice Sotomayor was there with people. But it just shows you that the culture has really changed, which is fantastic. And then, frankly, from my campaign, I spoke at my high school graduation in 2014. And two young people who were in the room who were graduating that year, two women, hustled afterwards. And they talked to their headmaster and they got my email address, and they reached out to me and they said, "Hey, I really liked your talk. Can I come and learn from you and talk to you?" And one of them ended up being my intern at the Pentagon, and both of them came and were the first two interns on my campaign when I decided to run. And it's because they had hustle. They actually took the time and followed up, went and got my email. And there's a lot of people who say they want to be mentored, but the ones who really want to be mentored are the ones who will hustle and show you that they are serious. So that was, for me, the beginning of what I think of as my formal mentorship career.
So I want to ask just one question for the panel, for everyone to answer. And this actually was something that I thought of in the last day. I was talking to a young woman, actually an intern of mine, and I was telling her what I was going to be doing today, that I was going to come and moderate this panel. And I was like, "Oh, would you ever consider running for office in your university?" And she was like, "Oh, no, that's for alpha women. Those are for aggressive women. I'm not one of those aggressive women." And I was sort of taken aback by this idea that you had to be an aggressive alpha woman to be representative and to run for office. And I never really thought of it that way. And I've always been struck by the diversity of members on the Hill. And you have members like, for example, Deb Fischer, who's a senator, a Republican senator from Nebraska, who literally, when she was a state senator in Nebraska, went 8 years without having a press conference because she just didn't think it was important, and that wasn't her thing, and she's not really about, the limelight. I think there's all these different kinds of characters. You don't have to be like the person who's the alpha and the center of attention all the time, I don't think. But I wanted to get your thoughts on that. And what do you feel like you have to be the alpha woman to run for office?
I'd love to answer that question because I feel like that my entire career up and until now has been the beta person, not woman or man. And let me explain. I was the chief operating officer of a company for 10 years. I was after that, the chief operating officer of another startup. And after that, I was a teacher. And after that, I was the chief operating officer of a company. I've always been the second person, the back office person, the person who's responsible for where the rubber meets the road. I've never been, the queen bee. I've never been the general. I've never been, that person. And I've also always been an introverted human as well. I would so much rather be in my pajamas right now.
So you keep mentioning your clothing, Christy. You just really want to be in sweats right now.
Game of Thrones. I mean, it's hard. This is hard. This is a hard experience. And I think that makes it better because I really genuinely have to do this. It's a calling. This is a call to serve in a way that I think people should answer their call, whatever it is. If it makes you uncomfortable, that's even better because we all are here for a purpose to sort of challenge ourselves. And so, no, I don't think we're all alpha people. I think that we're all either show horses or workhorses, show ponies or workhorses, and whatever suits you is what you should play.
Anyone else want to address that?
Sure, I'll go for it. Well, I would just preface this by saying that there's nothing wrong with being an alpha if that's what you feel in your heart. A lot of times we stigmatize women who are ambitious or who get outside of their place, so to speak, by wanting things that are bigger than what society allows them to be. So if you feel it in your heart that you're an alpha, go for it. For me, in my race, I was always a staffer who was supporting the candidate. I was always the helper or the worker bee. And I think inside me, I felt like a spark or feeling like I had potential to step up and do it. But I really just needed the confidence and network. And I think Running Start for being an organization that invested in me as I was making the transition from journalism over to advocacy and working on the Hill. I also am an alum of Emerge Maryland, which is a really great program that teaches you just tactically how to run for office. Yeah, that's where I would leave it. I'd say if you feel like an alpha, be an alpha. There's no shame in that.
May I say a couple of things? One, I want to make a correction. The city council expanded from 35 seats to 51 seats. There were 16 women when I was in the city council, and now it's only 9. But I don't know that there's a label for women who desire to serve. I've never considered myself an alpha person, but I've considered myself an outgoing person, someone who communicates and connects with people, someone who empathizes with individuals who are part of my community that needed a voice. I was basically raised in an environment where women were very vocal and engaged. They were the activists of the community. The daycare movement was what raised me in New York City. So I saw women out there engaged, confronting the powers that be. And I never considered them alpha necessarily. I considered them moms. Hello? Right? And so in terms of mentorship, I had the privilege of being around a lot of women who saw it necessary to engage the powers that be to shape what would be a society for their children to inherit from them. So most of my employers throughout my life have been mentors to me and have also been women. So I've never shied away from the fact that I thought women are leaders. And I think that in certain circumstances, we forget to see the leadership that exists around us, the everyday leadership that comes in the feminine, and then we try to label it something. Like I said, I never really considered myself an alpha. I can scrap with the best of them coming from Brooklyn, but I just think that women are finding their voice in different ways now, and we should applaud that.
You never know what happens until you take the mic. That is really what has been so magnificent with the 2018 election cycle, that the stereotypes were broken down. You'd see someone, and they'd say, oh, I'm running for something, or, we'd get to our little convenings for candidates. And then you'd see people in their debates or in their sessions, and it was wow. And that is what is remarkable about having this transformation with women stepping up, because we haven't seen it. I represent suburban Detroit. I launched my run at 33. Now, there's this thing called Wolfpack, the women under 40, that was housed at my university, American University. And I'm telling you all, I was convinced. I said, I'm never going to run for office before 40. I would never do that. But I ended up doing it, because coming out of the 2016 election, I was working in an advanced manufacturing research lab, seeing the attacks on science, and I just took the mic and I went after it. And if you would have seen this race the whole time for the 2 years I was running, first woman ever elected to the seat. I mean, the only people who've gotten elected for the last 60 years have been 50-something-year-old white men. And that's fine to have white men in office as well. But people didn't know what to do with me at first.
Exactly.
They didn't know what to do. And I just said, no, I'm doing it. And I mean, we had a bunch of people jump in the race, and I thought that was healthy, because democracy in action is healthy, and having people. But this woman kept raising her voice, kept making those phone calls, kept knocking doors. And call it a lot of energy. You can have energy, you can be an introvert, but if you have ideas and you have passion and conviction for what you want to do and how you want to serve your community, we need your voice, and we need it now.
I know that Congressman McMorris Rodgers and I have talked about this before, but it's one of the things that surprised me was you've had, 3 children now in office, and just like you would think that being a member and having kids would be incredibly difficult, but it's actually easier, right? You said it's easier because you have more control over your schedule. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I think so. Yes, I was 35 and single when I was elected to Congress, and you're not sure how that's all going to play out. I was the 5th to ever give birth, so it was still relatively new. The first to do it 3 times, and that normally gets a response, right, when people say that. Although there's my former staffer right now. So this is kind of a fun story. When I was a freshman, my very first team, one of my legislative assistants, who became a senior legislative assistant, is now a member of Congress, and she's pregnant, and she's going to give birth her 3rd time this year. So that's pretty exciting.
That's awesome.
I think being a mom in Congress, it's similar to millions of other working moms. Our schedules are demanding, but there's a lot of other working moms in America that have demanding schedules, or trying to figure out day in and day out how they can do it all. And one of the advantages that I do think that a member has is that we have to be there for votes, but we do have some flexibility where sometimes, not every single time, but most of the time, I can make it to the kids' classes if they're celebrating a birthday, or if there's some kind of a recital or whatever. I've been able to go and participate, and I have valued that, and valued that flexibility that comes, because other times I'm not able to be around as much as I would like. And having a supportive husband has made a big difference in all of this too. So
it's very important.
It's been
very important. Very important.
Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have. So thank you so much, Congresswoman.
Delegate. I'll take it. Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much to Jay and our panel. We'd like to show you a 50-second video made by young women at the Washington Post, sent to us by their senior mentor at the Washington Post, about the historic significance of the record number of women serving in office.
women across this nation smashed barriers in this year's historic midterm elections.
More than 100 women will serve on Capitol Hill in the next term, more than 24 of them for the first time.
For generations, men have dominated every power narrative in space. And so, we're standing in our power and claiming our space, and it's about damn time.
Say hi, everyone.
Hey.
We out here.
We are here at the airport in D.C. Orientation starts. We'll report back.
I don't know if this is ever going to get really old, but just walking and looking at this as I'm walking in is just so extremely powerful.
These are the women who will be in office come January 3rd. And so I'm proud beyond belief to serve with them.
Thank you so much again to the fabulous Congresswomen, to Jay, to Del. I would like to invite you